Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, or whenever you happen to be listening to this. Welcome to the Film Realist Podcast, the film and TV podcast from a complete nobody. That's hopefully for somebody. Welcome to episode 49. I think it's 49. If you are listening to this, I am Kyle Naranya. I am the host of the Film Realist Podcast, the film and TV podcast from a complete nobody. That's hopefully for somebody. This week's review will be of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, the latest theatrical going experience of the TMNT. I hope you had a chance to see it this past weekend. I will, of course, be reviewing that in spoilers and non-spoiler sections of the podcast. Time codes will be listed in the description should you not want to be spoiled for this review. Couple reminders before we get into the show that please share the podcast on your podcast platform. Please like and subscribe, or I guess follow the social medias for the podcast. It helps the clips and whatnot grow. And there is an announcement at the end of the episode, so don't skip that because you probably won't want to miss it. But let's not hold out anymore for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I messed that up. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. That is maybe some of the most words in a film title I can think of in recent memory outside of Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Fantabulous Harley Quinn, which of course got shortened down significantly during its theatrical run. This film was directed by Jeff Rowe. I was excited for this going into it. Jeff Rowe directed Mitchell's vs. the Machines, which was eventually released completely on Netflix, which is a film I thoroughly enjoyed. I've been a longtime fan of the TMNT, as you can see from my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows 3D glasses. And yes, Michelangelo is my favorite of the Turtles. He is the party dude, and I like to think that I am the party dude. Each turtle I'm going to get into probably more likely in spoilers, but we are in the non-spoiler section of the review, so general feelings on the film itself. As I stated, I really enjoyed Mitchell's vs. the Machines. I think that Seth Rogen has been, with his writing partner Evan Goldberg, phenomenal producers and showrunners behind things like The Boys, Preacher. Yes, Preacher. And so there are a variety of Turtles franchises, whether that's different movie series, different animated series. It seems to be slightly volatile in terms of what you think is the best. And as somebody who has seen all of the Ninja Turtles content, outside of all of Next Mutation, I've never forced myself to watch through that. I think it's unanimously one of the worst Ninja Turtle properties. I have a love of this franchise. I was going to get all the toys that I have from growing up, but I couldn't wrangle them all together for this review. But I do have all of the popcorn toppers from this film. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem is a fantastic reintroduction to the Turtles. One of the aspects that Seth Rogen has been repeatedly mentioning in promotional material for the film is that one of the aspects he was most curious to explore, and something he did not feel was explored as much in the previous content, was that of them being teenagers. Typically, the voice actors or motion capture actors, if you went into the more recent live action films, have been played by adults. And in playing a character who's supposed to be a teenager, a youthful, not yet adult, there are aspects of their personalities that he thought they could address. That is certainly one of the areas of the film that I think enhances it and has it stand out from the other versions of the Turtles. Casting actual teenagers to play these roles, you really do get that dynamic of these are not yet adults trying to figure things out, and what their specific personalities may be in that age range and how they interact with each other is one of the areas of the film that I think is the best. The animation for this film is thoroughly captivating. One of the aspects of the animation industry that Jeff Rowe has addressed is that he feels that something like Spider-Verse really showed studios that you can branch out in the type of animation and the different processes and visual style the audience is willing to accept, as opposed to DreamWorks face or something like Pixar or traditionally what Walt Disney Animation would present. And it's certainly one of the most visually interesting movies I've seen this year. The use of 2D elements along with the filmmaking practices put in place in this animated film, of course it's full 3D CGI, is very unique. And when you are trying to introduce a new generation of the Turtles to a over 30-year, almost 40-year fandom, it's something where you do have to be unique and you have to stand out. And I do think they achieved that. Overall, this film has been presented as being the best Ninja Turtles film ever. Being a kid of the 90s, it's very hard for me to let go of that first film from 1990, where you did get a fairly faithful adaptation of the first 4 or 5 issues of the comics, where it did feel more like an independent film. And you really did get to explore all four versions of the Turtles, being all 4 individuals, and the relationships between all 4 being explored. You could argue some maybe more so than the others, but it is one of the elements of the film that I was a little disappointed with, is that while as a foursome, they are wildly entertaining and you do get to see snippets of their personality, I think because there is so much going on in the film that the individuality of each turtle, it's in the original theme song for the cartoon, does not get fully addressed. One of the benefits of this franchise is there have been multiple animated series, and of course the one live action. But in doing so, you do get to explore each individual turtle and what makes them special and unique, and why they are a vital member of the team. And while I think you get to see their personality in a group, I don't think you really get to see the strengths of them as an individual very much. I know that sentence that I just said is probably a nightmare, but each turtle is there, and as somebody who's grown up with them, I think the focus clearly was them all as a group, and each individual does get sort of lost in it just being, well, they're an ensemble. And yes, they are absolutely an ensemble, and that's why it's worked for so long. Every person who is a fan of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is able to identify with one of them. That's been why they are so easy to be representative. You feel that, well, me being a fun and out loud human being, I tended to fit with Mikey being the party dude. Obviously, I'm not going to go through all 4 of them. If you're listening to this, you know what each of the turtles' personality is. And one of the elements that certainly doesn't get dropped, and this is not a spoiler, but I can get into it more so in the non-spoiler section, is that Leo being the leader typically seems to be the focus, and that's fine. You could argue, is the lead of the turtles in the film in terms of the most character development, which I appreciated, but it does feel like the other 3 do get less to do because of where the story places Leo amongst everything else that happens. Now, you're watching a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film. Of course, the other thing is going to be the action, which is so much fun to watch. There is particularly a sequence where we really get to see the turtles work as a team, and it is almost set up as a single take oneer, as it's called in the industry, where it does not appear that the camera cuts, or if it does, it seamlessly blends in different action sequences into each other, which was really cool to see, and it is set very well to a specific music track, and we get to see them develop as a team. One of the plot elements of this is that, I guess this may be, I'm not, it's fine. This is sort of an origin story for them being heroes in New York, and how they work together, and what their end goal is something I'm not going to get into, but that part's wildly entertaining. Their relationship with Splinter, who's played by Jackie Chan, is very good, and I really like the character that Splinter is in this one, where he's just a tired dad who wants to keep his 4 kids safe from things he's afraid of, and that's certainly an element I think a lot of parents can relate to, given what we've had to experience over the last 3 years. But there are elements of prejudice in this and perspective that are really important, and the way that the film addresses them I really did enjoy, and the conversations that may create because of what the film does have to say. And there are certainly elements of the Turtles' existence that is brand new and unique, and things I'm looking forward to seeing them address moving forward. Overall, this is a very entertaining film that introduces a great version of the Turtles that I think will stand the test of time amongst all of the other ones. I do not think that it is going to be the Spider-Verse of Turtles films. Again, this is coming from my opinion. I think it's a very good film, but in terms of the uniqueness of what it does, it certainly succeeds in animation style and having the Turtles be played by actual teenagers. I think overall the film gets lost in kind of the, pun intended, I guess, mayhem of what's going on and what they're trying to achieve. There's way too many characters with the amount of mutants we do see. I think more focus with some of the crew that we do meet would have been better. It becomes sort of a cameo fest in who plays them. And I don't want this to come off as negative, but my expectations for the film were very high, and I don't think they were met. There was a lot of conversation about how good this film is. It is wildly entertaining from start to finish, but I think more focus on less characters would have served the film better, and would have ultimately made it a better product in the end. So overall, it's a wildly entertaining film with really great action, and again, the Turtles as a group work really well together, and I think you'll enjoy that if that's what you're looking for. So that'll do it for the non-spoiler section of the podcast. I want to get into more details as to why I have what may sound like nitpicks, but elements I think that could have been improved upon. And with a sequel already being now announced for the film and an animated series, I'm hoping that they do get addressed. So I don't want to say anything more without getting into the spoilers, so I'm going to do that now. Spoilers ahead for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Again, very long title. So I addressed this in the non-spoiler section, which is that this film does serve as an origin story for the Turtles. I believe every single version of the theatrical films has addressed this. And one element that I'm very curious to see how the reaction is to this is where typically in the comics, the origin story for Splinter is that he is a rat owned by Hamato Yoshi, who then gets turned into an anthropomorphized or giant human-like rat. Whereas in the 80s cartoon, he's a human who gets turned into a rat man. And we do get to see that from the Turtles. We actually do get to see the origin of all of the different mutants in the film. And I addressed this in the non-spoiler section of the review, which is that because there are so many mutants, and I get we're supposed to just see a plethora of who Superfly, played by Ice Cube, who is very funny and a very good antagonist for the film, and the fact that he is asymmetrical in his design is something very unique and something I appreciate. One of the best aspects of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle franchise is that because it started off as already a parody of Daredevil, and as more and more science fiction elements were brought in, you could get wilder with the variety of designs of creatures and characters in that universe. They go to space, they go to in different dimensions. Obviously, with them being Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it allows for, I would say, the simplicity is not the goal when creating a character design. And so having as many mutants as there are in the film, I think just after the second act of the movie results in, while the Turtles, of course, are the focus, the fact that we are introduced to, I've lost count of how many different mutants we have. There's probably half a dozen, if not more, 6 or more likely, and it is cameos from friends of Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, and they are fun. They sort of just work as a single crew, an amalgamation of characters that are serving Superfly that want to rid the world of humans because mutants have been told they are freaks and that they do not belong in this world. So Superfly, who's looks at Baxter Stockman as his father, which is something really interesting because typically Baxter Stockman does turn into a giant fly or is slowly taken apart in the 2003 version of the franchise, where he wants to kill all humans. He hates them. And him being a more extreme mirror of Splinter's perspective on humans is certainly an element that I think does work in the film. And if we had just had a couple of mutants who are uncertain with Superfly's end goal, I think that message, which is good, and the film does execute, would have been able to be brought home more significantly. One element of the franchise that is not something I have enjoyed, and I understand that them being teenagers and hormones, having grown up being a teenager myself, I get why it is a part of the movie, but an element that seems to have been brought forward, to my knowledge, started with the 2012 series, which is one of my favorite versions of the Turtles in general, is of one of the Turtles being attracted to April. And in the 2012 series, it was Donatello. In this film, it's Leo. In the 2014-2017 film, the live-action produced Michael Bay films, it was Michelangelo. And while it can be an element of comedy at some time, I think it doesn't work very well. Quite frankly, even though I know this is probably blasphemy given my love of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise, if the crew had had like a Venus de Milo, where there was a female turtle, well, hopefully she would be more developed as opposed to just eye candy. That would, of course, be the hope. I don't think it works with them being different species. And I get the hormonal teenagers and all that stuff, but it's not an element I've enjoyed that seems to be now a mainstay of the franchise moving forward. Now, I haven't watched through all of Rise of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I don't know if that element is there. So if it is not, that's great, and I'm glad that it's not there. But overall, I like having the dichotomy with the two different mutant groups, but we get certain characters like Mondo Gecko, played by Paul Rudd, who's quite funny, he has a little bit of he has more interactions with the turtle group. Wingnut does as well. And there are a couple others that get pieces here and there. But ultimately, obviously, Superfly being the big bad of the film gets the most screen time. And the relationship I like with the high school elements brought into this with them being teenagers. Again, it's one of the aspects of the film that does feel the most unique out of the iterations of the Turtles we've had before, where you really do get to feel that they're teenagers. The side conversations they have, they're just having weird inside jokes. There's a bacon, egg, and cheese moment that's been released as a clip somewhere for promotional material. And that's really funny. The pop culture references that 15-year-olds now would be using obviously has dramatically changed since the Turtles were created in the mid-'80s. And so that works really well. Leo has probably the most development out of the four, as I mentioned in the non-spoiler section, where he has to kind of learn to be a leader, and the interactions between the four of them are very funny. We get snippets of Michelangelo loves improv, Donnie's really smart and into anime, Raph, of course, has anger management issues, which is always the way that Raph is addressed, but what makes them special in their own right is not something that the film has time for because it is introducing all of these different elements. We don't get to have scenes where the Turtles are just there by themselves, or even individual interactions with April, Splinter, or any of the other mutants, which I think if you had that to really drive home each individual turtle personality, the introductions are there, but it's not, I think, a home run the way that you would hope it would be with, again, as I mentioned, a franchise that has had 4 distinct personalities since it was created. well, maybe not necessarily in the comics, but post the first cartoon in 87, that has certainly been the case. This film does really work as an amalgamation of all the different versions that have come before, where we do get to see sort of the tech element that Donatello has, where they've got more equipment on them, and Raph being the bigger turtle in terms of aesthetic, them all being different shapes, sizes, is something I like to have them visually differentiate, especially if this is your first interaction to the Ninja Turtles. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, Kyle, you're a guy in your mid-30s, you've seen every version of the Turtles, you're probably being way too critical of this film that is designed for children. First, I'll say if a film is designed to be family-friendly, it should work for everybody. I personally don't really appreciate when somebody says, why are you being critical of a kid's film? Because if a film is targeted for children, it should be a film that all ages can appreciate, because I feel that typically when a film is made just for children, that the creators of that film don't respect children, and it can often talk down to them and treat them like a child, where the best films for kids that are family friendly, in my opinion, work because it provides learning opportunities while not being condescending. So, I've been talking a lot about this film, but I think it's time to talk to somebody who's probably a little bit younger that will have a different opinion than I do on this film aimed at children. Oh! How did you get here? So, what are we reviewing?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Movie. So, have you seen the Ninja Turtles before?
Yes.
You have? You've seen the movie before. But have
Yeah.
you watched any of the cartoons?
No.
No. So this is the first time you've seen the Ninja Turtles in anything, really, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't you tell me what you thought about the movie?
So, I think it's funny when I'm going to talk about the funny parts right now.
Okay.
So, one of my funny parts is where their dad kisses a lobster.
Oh, are you talking about Scumbug?
Yeah.
You thought that was funny? So what you're talking about is when Splinter, being a single dad of the Turtles, he can't go out and find another mutant to be his wife. Right?
Yeah.
Because there's not very many mutants out there, are there?
No.
So who he falls in love with, Scumbug?
Yeah. Then she is going to be his wife.
Yeah. So you thought that was really funny?
Yeah.
Of the Turtles, who do you think got to do the most?
The Raphael.
You think Raphael got to do the most? Mm-hmm. And was Superfly the good guy or the bad guy?
The bad guy.
But why was he the bad guy? Because the humans treated him nicely, or did they treat him badly?
They treated him badly because they didn't like mutant bugs like him.
No, was that very kind?
No.
Should we make people feel bad for being different?
No.
We should let them feel special for being unique, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but did Splinter have the same idea? Was he being very nice to the Turtles?
No.
Because what did they want to do?
They wanted to be heroes and let people respect them.
So how did they get people to respect them in the movie?
By saving the world from the bug.
Yeah, because what was Superfly trying to do?
He was trying to turn the humans into something else.
Into all other mutants?
Yeah.
Do you think you'd want to be a mutant?
No.
No, you don't think you'd want to be a mutant? Me neither. I think that this movie was really funny, like you said. Did you like all the different fight scenes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mentioned this in the non-spoiler section, and I mentioned it briefly before you showed up like a ninja, that I really liked how the fight scene just kept going on and on and on and on, where it looked like it was all the same sequence, where they were fighting all the bad guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you have something you wanted to say about that? Yeah. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to say their favorite food.
Oh, yeah.
Pizza. Every night. Pizza, 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 pizza. Every single night.
Do you remember what kind of pizza did Michelangelo say he liked for breakfast?
Waffles on pizza.
Waffles on... Do you think we should try that?
No.
You don't think so?
That would be gross.
But you've had a macaroni and cheese pizza.
I know.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
You think so? So yeah, you like this? Do you want to see another one of these Turtles movies?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, so I haven't even talked about this yet. I don't know if you remember. Who gets teased at the very end of the movie? Who's coming to capture the Turtles? Do you remember his name?
The Shredder.
So the Shredder, Oroku Saki, that's his real name, is not mentioned at all in the film until the post-credit scene. One of the elements that I liked, that I'm curious to see moving forward, is because of where the movie ends, which I want you to tell them. So the Turtles at the very end, they're considered heroes. Where do they get to go?
They get to go to school.
And do they wear their masks at school?
No.
No, they just wear regular people clothes, right?
Yeah.
So Cynthia Utrom, who runs TCRI, which is the company that creates, what's the stuff called that turned them into turtles? Do you remember what it's called? Ooze. Ooze. It just rolls off the tongue better. Can you say ooze? Ooze. Let's try that again. Ooze. And so Utrom, where you wouldn't know this yet, but we're going to start one of the turtle shows where we learn about the Utrom, are these little aliens inside the bellies of robots. And they look like people, but they're not people. They're robots with these aliens inside their tummies. You're not an Utrom, are you?
No.
You're not an
Daddy,
Utrom?
stop.
And so we get that element with her being called Cynthia Utrom, and we now know that the Shredder works for Cynthia Utrom, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
one of the funny parts is pretending where Michelangelo gets milked, but he's not getting milked.
no, they're taking his blood, right? Because she wants the mutagen to make an army of mutants.
And she wants to destroy the world.
Do you think the Turtles can let her destroy the world?
No.
No, so they save the world in this one, but Shredder's going to come after them in the next one. Do you think that'd be a good movie to see them fight the Shredder?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious if it's going to be an Utrom or a person Shredder. So that's something I'm looking forward to. Well, do you have anything else to say about Turtles?
Yes.
Okay, well, you go ahead.
I think that the part where their dad does all the kung fu, I'm trying to practice it.
But
I can't get the kung fu right.
That's okay. Splinter's had lots of practice. I'm really glad you brought that up. That's a sequence I didn't talk about. So when they've been captured by TCRI and they're in the milking machine that's taking all of their DNA, the sequence is very similar to class. So Jackie Chan, he does the voice for Splinter. And that action sequence is very reminiscent of movies that Jackie Chan was in, specifically in Hong Kong, where Drunken Master, some Rush Hour elements where the humor mixed with the action is really cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
And my favorite part, I don't know about you, but my favorite part was when Splinter gets all of the Turtles' weapons and he uses them all, because Splinter taught the Turtles how to be ninjas, right?
Yeah, and they used, I don't know how they got Donatello's sticks to turn into other sticks.
Oh, that's true. Well, it gets broken at one point, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think it does. Okay. Well, I don't have anything else to say about the movie. Clearly, the movie worked for somebody much younger than me. You're younger than me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're looking forward to more. Do you think if you like the Ninja Turtles, should you go and see this movie?
Yes.
Yes? You would recommend it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, it's got the Melody stamp of approval, which is important, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So, can you tell the people that next week I will be reviewing Star Trek Strange New Worlds?
Yes.
All right, so tell them. What am I reviewing next week?
Star Trek Strange New World.
Thank you. Season 2. So you can look forward to that because Gran Turismo got delayed 2 weeks. So the release schedule will still be the same, but you need to make sure you're following the social medias if there's something in particular you're looking forward to. Melody, thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome.
All right, say bye to everybody.
Bye.
All right, that will do it for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Thanks to Melody for showing up. That was not planned at all. Maybe it was. I don't know. This week's episode will be released early. Here's the announcement. If you did not get to the ending, a Patreon page has now been set up for the podcast. So there are multiple tiers. You can see the details in length, but The lowest tier gets you the podcast early. The middle tier gets you the podcast early, as well as a podcast producer credit. And you get the podcast in video form if you'd like to see the craziness the wildness that I get up to by myself. And that's there for you. And then the largest tier is the biggest tier. And you get all the other things plus a bonus episode every single week. And so that just helps out the show financially, can help it grow. It currently is just a one-man band with me doing all of the creative and post-production on my own. So if you'd like to support there with a couple of bucks, I would greatly appreciate it. The link for the Patreon will be in the podcast notes moving forward. As mentioned, next week's episode will be a review of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2. There are likely to be more television series reviews in the near future as films look to get delayed because of the strikes, which is unfortunate. If the studios just paid everybody what they're worth, this wouldn't be the case, but because it is, that'll likely be something. So if you liked Warrior, I'm going to be doing a season review of that, as well as Strange New Worlds, which will be coming next week. But the following week will be of Blue Beetle, the first DCU character, while not the first DCU movie. The DC universe continues to be confusing, so fingers crossed for Xolo Maridueña's debut as Jaime Reyes. I know I'm looking forward to it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like and share the podcast. Check out the question if you're listening on Spotify. The listener interaction is great for the show, and it helps me know what you enjoyed and maybe what I can work on in the future. Podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, Zencaster. The show is in a lot of different places, so I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope to see you next week. That'll do it for this episode. Goodbye.